best practices don't help organizations to move forward. The very first reason why I say that is best. I don't believe that there is something called as best practice. I believe there is a good practice. The moment you say best, it's a superlative degree. There is nothing beyond it. Now, if it is best, why do we come up with new versions every now and then? Best, to me, is subjective. Best, what is best for me may not be best for you, but they might be good for both of us. I can give a very simple example. If I give two Oscar-winning movie names here, I'm sure both of you or each one of you will say a different name. Not all of you will agree that, yes, there is one best movie picture. So what is defining best here? Best is subjective. I have my own set of criteria. So when we look at IT, what is best practice for me is defined by my customers, is defined by my employees, is defined by my processes, my strategy. So something which is best for you may not be best for me. So best is subjective. So I say best practices do not help organization to move forward. Right? The second point I would like to tell is, it's not the best practices which will help the organization to move forward. Best practice, if you break it up, is nothing but knowledge. What is best practice? Something which has been done, people have seen it, it's a proven thing. Most of the industries believe that yes, it is a best practice. Again, when I say best practice, I mean it's a good practice. I do not believe in best practice. Right? So this is a knowledge. We all know what ITIL is, we all know what Six Sigma is. All the organizations have access to this. Then why is it that one company is more successful than the other company? It's not the best practice which takes the organization to move forward, but it's their management, it's their asset. Best practice is available for everybody. That means everybody should be there on the top. Why is it not helping them to move forward? It is their assets. And again, best practice is a knowledge. Knowledge won't help you unless it is used, and unless it is used in the right context. So, if you do not apply your common sense on whether or not this practice will suit my organization, whether or not this practice has to be taken as it is, you are going to land up in trouble. The best practice will not help an organization to move forward. Another point that I would like to say is best practice is passive. Right? We all know ITIL V2 to ITIL V3, there is a 10 years of gap. What happened in this 10 years? If there is an organization which was counting on best practice to move forward, trust me, it is not moving forward. Whereas other organizations have moved forward, and from them is the OGC, who is the governing body of ITIL, has picked up the practices. Right? They have moved forward. They are proactive. They are thinking beyond best practice, and that's what helped them move forward. They're already ahead of you. You are still using your best practices and you're counting on it. So best practice is passive. Best practice should be just used as a yardstick. Nothing more than that. You see whether you are already there or you're not. And if you're already there, look at how you can do that even more better. Because ITIL V2 was a process-based approach. ITIL V3 is a service lifecycle based approach. That's a huge leap if you ask me. Right? And there are organizations who are doing that. And that's why they move forward, whereas you are still lacking behind. So these are the points I would like to say why best practices do not help organization to move forward. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ravi. So, thanks to Paul for summarizing why best practices are not good and whatever, but my view is a little different. So I don't believe that there are best practices should be. It's not like I would not dare to say that there are no best practices, because all of us would live on some things which are universally true, which means that, let's say, somebody has to generally treat as if you wake up early and then do exercise or whatever. So the health is usually good. So these are some things which are universally correct. We will not be able to say that these are not the best practices. Yes, there would be relativity, but at the same time the relativity is negligible. So if I look at organization evaluation, in my view there are three phases. One is we start the organization, and then we would standardize it, and then after that we would grow the organization. So there are the three phases. So suppose in the first two phases, maybe the best practices are useful, but let's say when I'm trying to grow the organization using some innovation or whatever, probably the best practices may not be very useful. Probably I would like to quote a few examples from a nice book called Blue Ocean Strategy. So it's all about, yes, there are a lot of things in the blue ocean, but there are few things which would come out of all the organizations doing. A simple example, there is a fitness center called Curve, which is mainly for the women. Usually in US, what happens is a lot of people, there are a lot of people who are overweight. But however, women, they would not really wanted to come to gym and then do something. But however, what this the person who started this Curve, what she did was, let's start a kind of a community kind of a fitness. So she arranged the equipment in a circular fashion, which is not a traditional way of the best practice which usually gyms does. So what happens is people can see their face to face, and then at the same time they can do gym, and then all the equipments they have treadmill and then cycling or whatever. Each equipment is different. So the person would spend 5 minutes here, move to another one. Meantime, they can speak to each other and all those things. So that's not a best practice during those days, but somebody invented something so that the cause is one of the, I think they have close to 1,000 branches in US, and then very recently they also moved to India for 300 branches. So that is a great example that you can pick it up. And one more example which I could say is Reliance, when they started the mobile. Dhirubhai Ambani had a vision that every Indian should speak on mobile. Again, that is something which is, if I look at 2000, 2001, not many mobile operators are into common man kind of a thing. So they felt that it's not the best practice to have a person who is driving auto or anybody talking the mobile. But somewhere in 2000 to 2003, when they started this 500 rupees mobile, again it's not a best practice, it is something which is an innovative idea. So Reliance was able to, Dhirubhai Ambani was able to make the dream to reality, though he died soon after that. But I think he was able to successfully achieve that dream. So again, in my view, that is only possible because they were able to move away from what the industry is doing and then do something different. There are plenty of examples if you talk about the iPhone and then or even the iPod, as simple as iPod. These are all some things which are breakthrough products which are not necessarily in line with the best practices. And we are into the economy which is knowledge economy, which is probably great tribute to Peter Drucker, who coined the word knowledge worker. In this world, in my view, each individual is different and each individual have their own thoughts. Maybe the best practices relate to manufacturing or supply chain management. Yes, they do work there. But if somebody is working in the knowledge economy and then in the world of Facebook or Google Plus or whatever, people wanted to do things differently, and then that's where we will be able to take the industry to the next level, not necessarily following what all the remaining world is doing. So I wanted to emphasize the fact that maybe the first two phases best practices might be helpful, but if you want to take the organization to the next level, when I say move forward, probably the best practice is not necessarily. I do want to touch upon few other things. One more important thing is what works best for one company not necessarily work for the other organization. As an example, what works for Infosys not necessarily work for Tesco. So that's where we need to also see the cultural fit, the value system, and all those things. So especially if I pick up one more example called Chepos.com, which is recently bought by Amazon, which is online shoe. A person can buy shoes online. Which is so they traditionally when the industry was in slum somewhere in 2001 or 2, just after the attack on the Twin Towers, all the American companies are moving the work to offshore. But these guys, they said that if you move the work to offshore, especially the call center business, they said that we would not do that because it's going to impact our. Their core thing is deliver happiness. So what does that mean? People will be able to converse in their local language, local things. As a good example in that book, Tony writes that one person calls the call center and asks that, can you please help me, where is the nearest Pizza Hut? So let's say if somebody is in outsourced world like Philippines or China or India, probably they would not be able to tell the answer. They would have cut the phone saying that, yeah, we do not know where is the Pizza Hut. But these guys, because their main core purpose is delivering happiness, so they were able to search in the internet and say that, okay, this is the closest Pizza Hut where you can go. So again, they were able to, again, now I think this company became within 10 years a $1 billion company, which is the greatest achievement in my view. So they were able to achieve this just because they were able to break through, come out of the best practices and they do something other than what the other industry leaders are. And I will have to pick up some other points when I get some more chance. So I'll leave first to Sakshi for the time being. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I agree with some of the points that Paul put forward. I think they are pretty interesting. Thinking of best in a superlative way may not be, the best way to think about it. But again, when you consider the best practices as a whole, you would want to consider it as the best of the prevailing methods that are around. So you don't want to consider it being, this is the best, it can't be improved any further. You want to consider it saying, alright, there are these n number of ways that you can go about tackling a subject out, and then you consider the best method on that. I agree with Paul again on that, saying calling it the best cuts out the room for further enhancements and improvements. But the laws of physics say that you cannot create something out of nothing. So we want to have something as a foundation. We still want to have something that lays down the foundation, and then it allows us to go ahead based on something, some values, some principles that each and every organization considers as its core values, and wants to move forward based on them. Then some of the things that Ravi mentioned, I don't agree with them. There are regular things. I'm not going into the debate yet. But best practices do not hinder innovations. Just because you are following best practices, you're not going to not be able to do something that's breakthrough. I mean, you sure can go ahead and do something breakthrough, think out of the box, and still have your fundamentals based out of the best practices. So, with that, I think I'll rest my case and we'll go on to the debate from now on. Thanks.
So, we'll have one round where you can